You ever when you do that thing where you're like you're so late to like the news
Yeah.
where you're like, because here's what I'm going to
This
tell
is
you.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's too late to be going, you know what's good?
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
The musical Hamilton. That thing that everybody in the world was raving about a decade ago. Turns
It's a
out
great
that
show
is,
called The Sopranos.
yeah, right? That's
Yeah.
what it feels like.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It's like incredible. It's one of the like greatest pieces of art that I've ever seen in my
Really?
entire life. It
Yeah,
is
right. Are
stunning.
you talking like within musical parameters or
of
just
any
in
type of
general?
art?
Really?
I genuinely think it's like one of the top 10 pieces of art. Now,
Really?
I've since read like, maybe there's like historical blah blah blah, maybe blah blah blah. Like there's all this revisionist stuff around whatever. But just as a piece of work, just
Okay.
as a go and see a show, like a thing, something that someone has made.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda, right?
Okay, so this is what we're going to get to.
Okay.
And okay. So I saw the Australian production.
Yep.
It was the first time I'd ever seen it. I'm not familiar with the original. Don't know anything about it. It is amazing. The guy who played Hamilton is one of the most impressive performances of any kind by anybody that I've ever seen. But the entire cast from top to bottom is just, and it was their final show. The audience was filled with family and friends, but also people who love the musical Hamilton had all come to this thing because
Hamilton
it was
heads.
right?
Yeah.
And they have really hardcore fans. So
Really?
literally, when people would go into their like songs, like they'd be cheering. Like when people would finish their last big song of the show, people would give standing ovations. I've never been in an audience where, like, if it had stopped at halftime.
Halftime.
Yeah, that's what I call it. Halftime for oranges. If it had stopped at the intermission, then I would have given it a standing. The first time ever, I reckon that I would have was just sprung to my feet for a standing ovation, and I just would have been like,
First time you sprung to your feet in about 10
I
years,
know,
I'd say.
honestly, Hamilton did to me something that doctors have not been able to do, which is get me to spring to my feet. At the end of the second half, like the end of the show, when everybody, I've never been in an audience where literally everybody stood. Like, it wasn't one of those standing ovations where it's everyone 100%. And then, of course, the cast were on stage, like celebrating themselves. Like there were moments within it where you could see people were crying on stage and all that sort of stuff during it because it's the final show. They've been doing this thing forever. It was so not only the show is amazing, but to be there on that particular show was what a blessing. Like it was just one of those moments where you're like, oh, I've seen something special, but I've also seen it on a day that is also special on top of that. So suddenly I'm just like, well, this is the greatest thing of all time. I've got to find out everything there is about this. Turns out there's lots of information about Hamilton. People have written a lot of things about it.
Yeah.
But I thought, oh, you know what? Well, Lin-Manuel Miranda, like incredible story, right? This guy who used to be in
I don't know anything about him.
came out to the Melbourne Comedy Festival in an improv comedy troupe.
Is that true?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Freestyle Love Supreme was the name of their group. They did
Right.
improv rap.
Okay.
And they were at the comedy festival.
What year?
Oh, I don't know, 25 years ago or
Yeah,
something.
right.
When it was whenever Keating the Musical,
Okay.
because he went, this is one of the like legendary stories about it. He went and saw Keating the Musical, and like people say that might have been part of the inspiration of like
political
writing.
history.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
Okay.
So, so he wrote this thing. It is incredible. Like it's stunning. But in the Broadway, the original Broadway recording, he is Hamilton. Right?
Okay.
He's the lead character. So it's available on Disney. You can watch it, right? So for most people, the first time they ever saw this thing was like with Lin-Manuel Miranda being the lead in Hamilton. The first time I saw it was like seeing this, Australian guy be the lead in it, who's just been doing it for 3 years.
Right. Is he anyone of note, or is he a musical?
I mean,
theatre
I
guy?
imagine he's huge in musical
okay, but he's
theatre.
not
Like he is one
it's
of the
not
more
like-
talented people I've ever seen in my entire
It's not like a
fucking
Hugh
life.
Jackman or
But
someone.
no, not somebody that I was familiar
Yeah.
with.
I was going to
So
say Craig McLaughlin.
then-
I was like, oh, wait a minute. No.
No,
the
that
wheel,
would be
the
on
wheel
the
hasn't
nose.
turned yet.
No, not yet. When they do SAS Australia, the musical, then he might be a shot for that one. So I then went and watched, because on Disney Plus you can watch the original Broadway cast. Lin-Manuel Miranda is not great.
Oh, controversial.
So this is the interesting thing. Now, I don't know if this is a widely held opinion because, like most people, the first time they saw it was with him in it, so you don't have that comparison. The guy who was doing it in the Australian one was so, like, I mean, like better in like just so much like better than Lin-Manuel Miranda is, and to the point where I believe that Lin-Manuel Miranda has done some sort of devil's bargain with where, like, you know, it's one of those, like, you know, the devil viol fiddler thing.
The devil came down to Georgia.
Yeah. Where he's made a deal where the devil has said, you can make the greatest piece of art of all time, but in return, you have to be the worst thing in it. You have to
Which
be
is
in
kinda
it,
like-
and you're the worst thing in
Well,
it.
it's kind of like Quentin Tarantino, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, he makes these Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, but he's clearly the weak link in both
Except
those
that
films.
the difference is if Quentin Tarantino cast himself as John Travolta's character
Yeah, right,
in
right,
Pulp
right.
Fiction,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
He was wise enough to go, I'll just be a
Hamilton
supporting role.
is so good. Like, it's such a genius piece of work that they let someone who is completely unqualified to be the lead in it be in it because he wrote it and like came
Yeah,
up with
right.
it. Like, it's the ultimate kind of irony.
Mm.
And like I was saying, he sounds like Kermit the Frog. Like, you can't. So that's what I was reminded of it. Right? He just like, you know, my name. Everyone else is so powerful, and then he's like, my name is Alexander Hamilton, and so then
Alexander Hamilton.
I'm like, does anybody else think that he? Like, I was like,
Right,
I've got to see
okay.
if anyone else thinks he sounds like Kermit the Frog. Firstly, yes, but secondly, turns out the Muppets have done an entire version of Hamilton where Kermit the Frog is Hamilton.
Everyone relax.